Kansas City Chiefs are overrated, and they are the evil empire, and they're the most hated team in the
They are overrated.
The old Travis Kelce that I know, the pre-Taylor Swift Travis Kelce, he finds a way to impact games. He's not doing anything for this team right now. They are not the best team in the NFL right now.
You're a professional wide receiver being paid millions of dollars. What on earth are you doing letting that ball hit the ground?
Dak Prescott.
Throwing his toys out of the pram all over the field,
and
slamming his arms down, pouting on the sidelines. It was pathetic. I want to talk about the officiating quickly in the NFL. 3 calls this weekend that were absolutely farcical to me.
It's been the no-fun league for 2 decades now. Everybody, this is what the NFL does. They penalize you for your socks. They fine you for this. They fine you for that. I have a problem with Travis Kelce right now.
Hi guys, welcome to talkSPORT's The NFL Rundown, our weekly show where we look back at the biggest and hottest stories from all the weekend's action and forward to what's coming up in Week 4. Joining me today, columnist Brian T. Smith. Brian, another fun week in the NFL. 6 teams had their first wins, 5 teams remain undefeated, 3 teams remain without a victory, and still all of our preseason predictions feel like they're out the window.
I've been kind of right so far. I haven't been as wrong as you, but no, this has been my favorite week of the NFL season thus far because we're starting to see some separation, but we also have total chaos going at the same time, Will. And Caleb Williams is wearing a wristband now because he can't read plays. There is so much to get into. I cannot wait.
And look, I think the best way to deal with these things is to fess up to them up front rather than burying them further in the show.
Don't try to hide.
We'll find them and go for them. I predicted the Jags were going to win the AFC South. They're 0-3.
That is a horrible prediction.
I predicted the Bengals were going to go to the Super Bowl from the AFC.
You might want to leave the show right now.
I'm definitely never going to be doing any form of gambling or predictions ever again for the rest of my life. So look, let's get into it. We're going to be talking about those rookie quarterbacks. Sensational Jaden Daniels' performance on Monday night. Caleb Williams gets his first touchdowns. Bo Nix looks like a viable NFL quarterback. We're going to be talking plenty about the action that we saw in San Francisco, in Dallas. We'll do what we love from Week 3 in the NFL and, of course, have our extra point later on. But we're going to start off by focusing on those records. We'll talk 0-3 teams shortly, but 5 teams sat at 3-0 on the season, undefeated right now. And I think, Brian, if going into the year you turned and said, right, Week 3, 5 teams going to be a 3-0, of the 5 that are there, I reckon you and I would have nailed 2 of them, no problem. I think the other 3 might not have even graced our top 10 of choices.
You couldn't have the Chiefs and the Ravens both in there because they kicked off the season, right? But, I mean, the Ravens finally this week against the Cowboys, which we'll get into, look like a team that is a Super Bowl contender. But you're completely right, Will. I mean, this is something we do 100,000% agree on. The season has been so unpredictable, and some of these teams that are still undefeated, nobody, not even the players, not the head coaches, not the fans, nobody was predicting that the Seattle Seahawks, the Minnesota Vikings with Sam Darnold would be undefeated. It has been a crazy start, but from an NFL perspective, it's been a perfect start because you have parity, which is what makes the NFL so special. You have veteran quarterbacks that fans know. You have rookie quarterbacks. You have great defenses. You have some offense. You have some superstars. It's a perfect combination. And I remember last year, the league it felt like on some level being carried early on by Taylor Swift, right? It was still the NFL. They're getting record ratings, but it was, oh my gosh, Taylor Swift is at a game. The NFL was tweeting about it. We're not even talking about Taylor Swift right now. That's how good the on-field product has been through 3 weeks. And you have to watch. You have to pay attention to every score, watch every game, follow everything. Who won on Monday Night Football? Oh my gosh, Jaden Daniels did this. That's how good the league has been through 3 weeks.
That's a Monday Night Football game, by the way. And of all the fun, nerdy stats from the weekend, that Bengals Washington Commanders game was the first game since 1940.
When you were born, right?
Yeah, around about. Yeah. Like I was probably just still in nappies at that point. Where neither team punted and there was no turnovers. Every drive was a scoring drive for the entire game. What's not to love about a game where it's end-to-end and every time you get there are points going on the board? So, look, we'll talk about that game in terms of the rookie quarterbacks, but what I want to do with these 3-0 teams, we're going to rank them based on how likely we think they are to go deep into the postseason. And because we love to skew just a little bit negative, all that positivity you've got around your team right now, we're going to just take a little bit of a dump on it and tell you when your first loss is coming, right? So let's start off with the Kansas City Chiefs. They go to Atlanta, they get the victory, they ruin Arthur Blank's big day as he gets put into the Ring of Honor there in Atlanta. They say it's the biggest game there possible. But yet again, from a Chiefs perspective, it's a performance where I thought versus the first 2 weeks, where I actually didn't think they were necessarily the better teams against the Ravens and the Bengals. I think overall they were the better team against the Falcons. They moved the ball really well. They had time of possession, like I think it was about 2/3 to a third. They drove the ball. They had the yardage. Turnovers and red zone issues cost them. But overall, I thought they were the better team. And yet, the Falcons had 2 4th downs in the red zone in the fourth quarter to go and take a lead, and what should have been a decisive lead in this game, and weren't quite able to get over the line. So it's back to the same conversation as last week. The Chiefs do just enough.
You hate the Kansas City Chiefs. That was the conversation. The Kansas City Chiefs are overrated, and they are the evil empire, and they're the most hated team in the
They are overrated, but that's fine. Do we give them enough credit for winning despite not playing well, or as we look down the schedule of games coming up, a loss is on the way?
I will give them credit for winning and being 3-0 and still being undefeated while Travis Kelce has 69 yards. I mean, the fact that Travis Kelce only has 69 receiving yards and this team is still winning. Now, Patrick Mahomes is saying that he's being double-teamed and triple-teamed, but the old Travis Kelce that I know, the pre-Taylor Swift Travis Kelce, he finds a way to impact games. He's not doing anything for this team right now offensively. They lose key offensive pieces. They lose Pacheco, and they're still winning. So they deserve full credit, which is what I was giving on the show last week. But they are not the best team in the NFL right now. I mean, they're holding on in my Super Bowl rankings maybe to number 1 barely, but that's just because of their legacy that we know in the end by week 17 by the playoffs, theoretically the Kansas City Chiefs will be better. That's what they did last year. Right now, as we speak, they're due for a loss. I think this is going to help you out. I think I'm going to predict right now.
Just me as an individual.
Let's see if I'm right in a few weeks. Kansas City Chiefs moved to 5-0, and their loss is against your San Francisco 49ers.
Now, I didn't pick that. And I don't know, we've got, what the schedules look like for the rest of the season for these teams, or at least for the next 6 games. So for the Kansas City Chiefs, I look through those 6 games, and what concerns me about that game going on the road to the 49ers in Week 8 is it's off the back of the bye, and Andy Reid has traditionally outcoached everybody in the NFL off the back of the bye.
Shanahan's pretty good, though.
Yeah, and it will be a long week for the 49ers because they'd have played Thursday night football. But the 2 Super Bowls where they faced off, the Chiefs have come out on top, and it's large part thanks to coaching, right? So I've got them beating the 49ers. I've then got them having a surprise loss on the road in Week 9 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that defense by that point has got healthy. I think the Chiefs are going to be sat at 7-0, had a bye week, absolute cock of the walk, really feeling themselves. And they're going to go into Tampa Bay, who were embarrassed this week against the Broncos. And that's where they're going to suffer that first loss. And then they'll get a bit wobbly after that. Bills game coming up in Week 11 is going to be huge. But yeah, I think for me, if I look down this list, I think they're most likely to be the last undefeated team. But let's crack our way through them.
Let's do it.
Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills. And I said Josh Allen before the Buffalo Bills, because as much as there's a lot to love about this Bills team, it kind of starts and stops with Josh Allen having an MVP season right now.
Yeah, Josh Allen is playing this game, and he's being... LeBron James, the king of the NBA, the all-time leading scorer, one of the biggest names in the sports world, is tweeting about Josh Allen while the game is going on. That's how good Josh Allen was on Monday Night Football. And maybe now people will start talking about the Buffalo Bills. We were talking about this last week on the program. I felt like they were maybe the most underrated team in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills have just been lights out thus far. When they dominated the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football, all the talk was about Tua, right? The concussion, and it was Tua. Well, you were right to point out, we didn't talk enough about how dominant the Bills were. That game was over before Tua went out. The Jacksonville Jaguars couldn't even show up on Monday Night Football. Trevor Lawrence sucks right now. Trevor Lawrence looks horrible. Doug Peters, I sort of hear some steps coming down the hallway from one of the cons that Doug Peterson might want to have his key card ready because he can get locked out of the building. That's how good the Buffalo Bills were. And Josh Allen, right now, through 3 weeks, Josh Allen would get my MVP vote. And it's a very fun conversation. If the Bills and Chiefs played right now, it's early, but right now, who's winning that game? Bills are the better team right now.
Yeah, neutral field, AFC Championship game, which obviously isn't played on a neutral field. But give me those 2 teams on a neutral field. I would take the Bills all day long based on the way they're playing through the first few weeks. And Josh Allen is a huge part of it, but you've got to get excited about...
The schedule is hard, though. Like, you look at what they're facing coming up. You're dealing, so you're beating the Jaguars. Maybe that's the Doug Peterson gets fired game at the Ravens, at the Texans, at the Jets. Having to deal with the Ravens and the Texans, Buffalo Bills are not staying undefeated.
You see, this is where I think they're really going to prove their mettle over the next 2 weeks, right? Because I think that defense looks great. I think they get rid of Stephon Diggs and suddenly they make Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman.
Notice that the Bills have a little better chemistry without Stephon Diggs.
Don't they just? And that's why Stephon Diggs is, having friendly balls thrown to him, as he liked to tell us, out in Houston. But their supporting cast looks great. The defense looks great. The special teams looks great. And then they've got an MVP quarterback to lead them. I think they go into Baltimore and win. I think they go into Houston and win. I just think that 3 road games in a row against playoff contenders might be too much. Monday Night Football, under the lights, live on talkSPORT 2. My first loss of the season I've got for them is falling to the Jets in Week 6 to go to 5-1.
So who's lasting the longest out of these teams?
There's a little part of
I want you to go first.
I think, I've already said I think the Chiefs go to Week 9. For me, that's going to be the last undefeated team. And for people who aren't kind of aware of the fun history of this, right? Only one undefeated team in NFL history, thanks to Eli Manning and the New York Giants. Forever praise Eli Manning for beating Tom Brady in that Super Bowl and preventing the Patriots.
That was David Tyree helmet catch game too, right?
Yeah. So 1972, the Miami Dolphins, Larry Sonka, just unbelievable. That 3-year run where they went to the Super Bowl, won it twice and lost one, and had an undefeated season is up there with all the all-time great NFL dynasties. There is this old wives' tale. There is this tradition that every time a team is undefeated in the NFL, the players of that team pop the bottles. The last O to go means that the champagne comes out. They celebrate remaining the only team undefeated in NFL history. And so I think it goes until the Chiefs in Week 9. Because I'm going to tell you, and we'll talk about these teams, I've got the Vikings losing this week to the Packers. I don't
think that's happening, but let's revisit that.
Losing this week to the Lions. And I've got the Steelers lasting 1 extra week and then losing to the Cowboys.
The Steelers are not losing to Anthony Richardson and the Colts. But yeah, I would not be surprised. I don't think they do it, but I would not be shocked if the Minnesota Vikings, and you got to keep Sam Darnold looking like the number 2 MVP in the league. At the Packers, that's an interesting game. That's a rivalry game, but that is a winnable game because you don't have Jordan Love, right? So they could, with Brian Flores.
They might have Jordan Love.
I think Vikings win that game. Lions is a fun game, but you're at home. You're winning against the Rams on the road. You're beating the Colts, and you're winning at the Jaguars. Are we sitting here and talking in 5 or 6 weeks, and the Minnesota Vikings are still undefeated?
If we're sat with a 9-0 Minnesota Vikings who have come out
with Sam Darnold as the quarterback,
who have come out to London as part of that run and continue to be undefeated here in London as well, I'm not going to say I'd eat my own hat because I don't have one on, but I just can't see it. And I actually think they go to the Packers this week. And I want to be completely effusive in my praise of the Vikings first and foremost. 34-7 winners over the Texans. And for me, it illustrated slightly that the 49ers keeping that game close last week was surprising because that Vikings defense looks absolutely unbelievable. CJ Stroud for the Texans hasn't thrown a pick since week 11 of last season. His first throw of the game this week after they throw a very exotic disguised blitz at him, throws an interception. Throws a second one later in the game, chasing the game. They force fumbles. They turn the ball over. They get right after the quarterback. They had, I think it was Jonathan Grenard had 6 quarterback pressures on the day. 10 different Minnesota defenders earned 2 quarterback pressures in this game. That means he was pressured over 20 times on dropbacks. That is an unbelievable rate. But I think the way that the Packers have coached up Malik Willis, I think the way the Packers have looked on defense through the first week, I think it being in Lambeau Field, the whole divisional rival thing, I'm going to be taking the Packers this week.
I'm taking the Vikes. Let's see who's right in a week.
Let's talk about the 2 teams who I think are the biggest surprise to be here, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Seattle Seahawks. The Steelers and Justin Fields. Russell Wilson gets injured pre-season. They have to start Fields. They refuse to admit he's the starter 3 weeks in, even now. I watched that game back this morning, and I thought that as much as their defense is the big story, Justin Fields had 2 or 3 real money throws, which I never saw him make in Chicago. And actually, I think a Steelers team with Justin Fields at quarterback could be a proper playoff contender.
So we have a story. This covered at talkSPORT.com, and it's incredible what Justin Fields is doing right now. Number one, it proves that this whole push to rush all of these rookie quarterbacks, some of them, Jaden Daniels looks really good right now. Bo Nix had a nice game. Let's see if he can replicate it. But this push, they all have to start. They all have to be franchise quarterbacks. That's not how it used to be. I remember talking to Kurt Warner before the season started, and he was like, let's actually see what happens because most of these guys need time. Drake May's resting right now. J.J. McCarthy's not playing for the Minnesota Vikings. But Justin Fields is perfect proof that some of these guys need time to develop, and it comes down to fit. It comes down to situation. We were on this show last week talking about, there are all the uncontrollables, the intangibles that you don't get to pick your head coach, your general manager, your offensive line, all these things. Justin Fields is now in a situation he didn't win it, so to speak. Russell Wilson gets injured, but Justin Fields looks fantastic right now. And the irony is that he wanted to stay in Chicago. He came out during the offseason and said, I just want to be done with this. I want to know, am I staying or going? The Bears go all in on Caleb Williams, who had a bunch of garbage time stats last week, but he's relying on a wristband. That story went absolutely viral at talkSPORT.com because it sounds so crazy. Your number one pick you're investing all this money in has to rely on a wristband. All of a sudden in week
right,
three...
But you're sitting here saying that rookie quarterbacks need to be given a chance to develop, and rookie quarterbacks need to be given an opportunity to learn and sit behind somebody. And, great, Patrick Mahomes got to do it for a year behind Alex Smith, and Jordan Love got to do it behind Aaron Rodgers. And look how fantastic those guys are.
Worked out pretty well for Tom Brady.
All of those things are very positive. So why are we then absolutely kind of taking aim at a guy for making the game a bit simpler for himself, for making it easier to call plays so he can go out there? And as much as he had two or three horrible mistakes in that game, Caleb Williams, he also played his best game in the NFL so far and got 2 touchdown passes.
Why are we taking aim? We're taking aim because Caleb Williams talked a bunch of trash in the offseason and told his punter that don't worry, dude, you're not going to have to punt anymore. That's the dumbest thing I have heard, maybe in NFL history. Caleb Williams, who is the most outlandish, over-the-top, arrogant, overly confident, very good, maybe, hasn't done anything in the NFL. That is the wrong way to go about it. So the fact that, yes, maybe he had a wristband, but he didn't really want to use the wristband. He can figure it out. Caleb Williams is so good. He's going to change the NFL. He doesn't need to do what everybody else does. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, whoever it is. That's why we're making fun of it. That's why it looks really, really stupid for the Chicago Bears. And it shows. They already have coaching questions. They have offensive coordinator questions. Caleb Williams always looks like he's mad. It's gone completely backward for him. Only through 3 games. I think he will be fine. But relate that to Justin Fields. The Chicago Bears gave up on Justin Fields. They got nothing for him when they traded him. He looks great. The Bears look absolutely horrible right now.
Sorry, Steelers fans who were hoping we were engaged on a Steelers point. I do think Justin Fields has looked brilliant. I think the offense is coming together. There is a running game there. Mike Tomlin, it's perfect Mike Tomlin football.
Mike Tomlin football, I love it.
It is defense first, run the ball, make enough plays.
1940s football. That's what they're dealing with.
They want to win games where they score no more than 20 points and concede no more than 10. And that's exactly what they've done this weekend. That defense, though, only 8.7 points per game through the first 3 weeks of the season is a ridiculous low through that many games.
Is TJ Watt better than JJ Watt right now?
TJ Watt is...
TJ Watt is a monster.
Unbelievable, but I'm going to make a kind of claim about this defense, is that I think if TJ Watt were to go out for 4 or 5 weeks, I'm not saying season ending, but missed a chunk of time, I think they've got enough else there to put it together. The guy who I think that defense is hanging together on right now is Joey Porter Jr., who, what a great story, drafted for the team his dad played for, came in, started as a rookie, very splashy, but also gave up a lot of big plays, bit of a wobble on whether he was going to actually be good or not. I think he is the whole heart of the back seven of their defense. And so he's the guy I'd be more concerned about losing at this point. I've got the Steelers. I've got them losing to Dallas in Week 5 because I'm trying to give the Dallas Cowboys fans something to be
Dallas might win
about.
one more game this year,
And I think just offensively in their own building, they might have too much for them. But that Pittsburgh defense, I thought they were going to have their first under 500 season. Mike Tomlin has never had a season under 500.
One of the greatest stats in modern NFL history.
This is an organisation who have only had 3 head coaches in the Super Bowl era. Since 1969, only 3 men have held that job. And yet Mike Tomlin, in the years that he's had it, in the 2 decades he's been there, has never had a losing season. And I looked at this roster this year, and I looked at the quarterback, and I went, this is it.
And that's what everyone's saying.
This is their 8 and 9 year. Yeah. This is their 7 and 10 year. Nope. I think they're going to go
good for
10
Justin,
wins,
good
11
for Justin.
wins, go to
we'll
the
save the
playoffs.
total positivity for later, but good for Justin Fields, who really It never was right in Chicago. I mean, incredible running quarterback, more of a runner at one point than a passer. He loses weapons. You have all these changes. They treated him very, very, very poorly. They did not do right by him at all. Basically gave him away, and he's proving the Bears absolutely blew it right now.
So the Seattle Seahawks, next week they've got a really tough Monday night doubleheader game against the Lions team who haven't looked at their very best so far, but are getting wins, did it again this week, pulled out a gritty performance. Seattle, I came into this season, Mike Macdonald comes over, the defensive coordinator of the Ravens, who has been an absolute genius over there, comes into the NFC West. His whole thing is that he is the guy who has the new defense that the NFL is going to figure out, the Shanahan-McVay tree. They're going to go and they're going to go right back to Mike Shanahan's offense with the Broncos, and they're going to say, this is what's dominating. These guys, their offensive coordinators are getting head coaching jobs left, right, and centre. From within their coaching tree, there are 8 guys in the NFL right now in top-tier positions, head coaches or offensive coordinators, and Mike Macdonald's the guy who's figured them out. But he's going in Seattle team who it's a bit messy. We're not sure about whether or not the splashy stuff from their corners last year was sustainable. Do they actually have a pass rush? And I went into the season, I went, look, I love Mike Macdonald. I think the Seahawks are going to be a very, very good football team from like November onwards. Because it's going to take a while for them to learn the scheme. It's going to take a while for them to figure Mike Macdonald out. And they've come out and looked absolute money against some bad teams. But I think the Seahawks might be The Seahawks or Vikings are the 2 biggest surprises for me of the season.
For me, it's not even close. It's the Minnesota Vikings. I don't believe in the Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith is your quarterback. You might win 8 games. You might win 9 games. They kind of did this the last couple of years. This is what they do. They don't have enough talent. They're good. Credit to them. Very nice start. Nobody predicted it. I completely agree with you. But we will not be talking about the Seattle Seahawks in Week 17 or in the playoffs. I'm not super impressed.
Let's take a look through and look at our all 5 teams. Where's their first loss going to come? And then we're going to rank them. So for the Chiefs, I've got them losing to the Bucs in Week 9. You've got the 49ers on the road in Week 8. For the Bills, I fancy the Jets in Week 6 to go to 5-1. I think you said Houston the week before.
I'll take the Ravens.
Okay, next week.
The Ravens.
Wow, one of the next teams.
And by the way, let's just say this is all going to be wrong because you cannot predict every team's loss. This is a really bad idea. We're going to look really bad.
No, we're going 5 for 5 here, guys. One of us is going 5 for 5. We'll figure it out. The Minnesota Vikings, I've said this week to the Packers, you've got them going a lot deeper than that.
Minnesota Vikings aren't losing until after these games. I'll be wrong.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, I've got against Dallas Week 5.
Cowboys.
Yeah, okay. And then
we agree.
The Seahawks, the Lions on Monday night.
That's why I don't really care about the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah. They're losing to the Lions. They're losing to the Lions the next game.
So if we're ranking these teams, I think we've both got the Seahawks in 5 right now by the sounds of it. And as much as that Steelers defense is great, got to prove it long term.
Justin Fields is still your quarterback. You don't have enough offensive talent. Yes, they are 4.
Fine. Just based on the performance this season so far, so slightly different to your Super Bowl contenders at talkSPORT.com. Chiefs, Vikings, Bills, what order are you going in?
As of this second on planet Earth, is that what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Fine. What we've seen through 3 weeks.
Chiefs are number 3.
Yeah.
Chiefs are number 3.
I don't think it's close either. Yeah. I think those top 2 are in a tier of their own.
I'd love to see Brian Flores' defense go against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and the offense with Travis Kelce not being able to even contribute anymore. I think Minnesota would eat them alive right now.
Bills or Vikes as 1?
I don't like to be at this point in my life where I say just these incredible things about the Buffalo Bills because historically it comes back to really haunt you. I love the Buffalo Bills right now. Right now. They are just so strong. And I feel like this is a perfect example of it does take time. Like Justin Fields, like it takes time. You have to lose a little in the NFL. And not everybody's Patrick Mahomes. You have to lose a little. Josh Allen has been through it for years now. You get rid of Stephon Diggs. This is a really good Buffalo team at this moment.
I'm going Vikings and Bills as well. It's purely based on Josh Allen.
Sam Darnold's winning the Super Bowl.
I think Vikings are the 52. But these are 2 teams who, if people don't know the historical context of these 2 teams, the Minnesota Vikings have been to 4 Super Bowls and lost every single one of them. The Buffalo Bills not only have been to 4 Super Bowls and lost every single one of them, the only 2 teams in the NFL who have that record, but the Buffalo Bills did it 4 years on the trot. I would love to see
That'd be the
in
best
New
Super
Orleans,
Bowl ever. Yes.
If we got Bills Vikings, somebody has to finally win a chip. That would be just the greatest storyline, the greatest week in New Orleans, and the greatest party city in America.
That's fantastic.
I am totally,
that'd be such an
here for
NFL
it.
Super Bowl, right? I mean, and most you would never want that in the NBA, right? You would never want that in Major League Baseball or any other big American sport. But the NFL, that would be a perfect NFL Super Bowl. I'm all for that. After 3 weeks, Vikings-Bills Super Bowl. Let's do it.
We've gone deep on this. I'm just confirming the final 5. Seahawks, Steelers, Chiefs, Vikings, Bills. But those 2 are in a category of their own.
Yes.
Category of their own.
All right, well, we have touched on the 3-0 teams.
Or touched on a stretch. We have gone deep on the 3-0 teams.
0-3 settled, but out of the 0-3, who are you panicking? Like, who's freaking you out right now?
I would say, well, we talked about it at the very top of the show, the Jags and the Bengals are the teams that I, in the season, went in thinking these teams are going to be great. I'm not so convinced anymore. The Jacksonville Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence, he is an NFL worst, 8 straight losses at quarterback.
Turnover machine.
He's done it twice in his career now. That, as a rookie quarterback who's the number 1 overall pick, only Jim Plunkett in the NFL era has had 2 streaks of 8 straight losses as a number 1 overall pick. That is a concern. They have spent $275 million on that guy. That is a huge worry.
Once again, the Jacksonville Jaguars are in danger of being relegated. I say that every few years, the Jacksonville Jaguars are under the serious threat of relegation. They cannot be trusted. I would never bet on them. They are the most unfaithful NFL organization, and if they could, they'd be knocked out of the league, and you promote Georgia. You promote somebody from college football.
The problem is that the first 2 weeks they lost by a combined 8 points, were in those games, had a chance to win, getting blown out by the Bills this week. That's now panic station.
Do they scare you the most?
The Bengals are a concern for me, but outside of the 0-3 teams, I think there are a couple of teams there. I want to get into the Cowboys a little bit later on.
Please, let's do.
We're going to save that for towards the end of the show. This week on the channel, if you go to talkSPORT End Zone and subscribe there, I had a conversation with Mike Silver, brilliant beat writer for the San Francisco 49ers, been covering that team since the early 90s, in the Mike Shanahan era, the Steve Young era, knows as much about that team as anyone else. He's saying that tough questions need to be asked about this football team.
Let's be honest, Kyle Shanahan scapegoated Steve Wilkes last season. It was a first-year defensive coordinator. They played really good defense in the Super Bowl, but weren't up to the previous standards set by DeMeco Ryans the year before. If I were Kyle Shanahan, I wouldn't even be thinking about Nick Sorensen, because my head would be exploding when I think about special teams, because their special teams have been especially atrocious, and it's a fiasco, and it cost them this game with the fake punt that they allowed, the missed field goal. Okay, that was 55 yards, but then to give up a long punt return that put the Rams in position to win the game was unconscionable. All the signs are bad, and they're getting older and more beat up. But the one thing that I would hedge on here is they've got a quarterback who's, in my opinion, better than most people understand still, and he's getting better.
Mike Silver there from the San Francisco Chronicle. He's got a big book coming out about the Shanahan tree, about Kyle Shanahan, about everything that Sean McVay's done, going back to Mike Shanahan as well. But there's one point that he made there that I think is really important. And look, I did a video on talkSPORT End Zone on Sunday night, reacting immediately after the game.
I liked it.
And thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Did you
like
comment as well? Like and comment and subscribe.
Anonymously, yes, of course.
Look, I thought that was the most embarrassing regular season loss of Kyle Shanahan's 49ers career. I thought that every phase of the game, there were huge reasons to be disappointed. And yet, I think it was maybe Brock Purdy's best game starting for the 49ers. I thought he was absolutely sensational. Without Christian McCaffrey, without George Kittle, without Deebo Samuel, 3 of the best defensive weapons in the NFL, he goes out there and puts on an absolute clinic. He only goes 22 of 30 with 3 touchdowns. But of the 8 missed passes in this game, of the 8 incompletions, 6 of them are drops. And not like hard drops, not like, they're outside the catch zone, a little bit difficult. Like into the breadbasket, never should have been dropped. You're a professional wide receiver being paid millions of dollars. What on earth are you doing letting that ball hit the ground? I think Brock Purdy and Jawan Jennings, who had 11 for 175 and 3 touchdowns, I think the whole team let them down because they put on a performance which we'd have been talking about for weeks, months, if not years to come, but in a loss.
And a loss to the Rams. Like, you cannot, who had been horrible leading into that, you cannot lose to the Los Angeles Rams. I think I saw you tweeted or you retweeted during the game about the 49ers crowd, right? And SoFi. You don't look
cocky,
you don't look stupid right now, but the general 49er, LA fans, whoever, look really stupid right now. No, but I completely agree with you. And here's where we are with the 49ers. And I do blame a lot of this again, and I said this last week on Christian McCaffrey being out. But we're sort of past that. They're in this weird spot right now, Will, to where Brock Purdy is the least of their concerns. There were always before, was Brock Purdy good enough? Could he be counted on? That's all we heard the previous 2 years. Brock Purdy looks like an all-pro quarterback right now. And Brock Purdy spent the offseason, and people were saying, slow down, dude. You don't need to do it all. Well, he's been fantastic. They don't have to worry about him. And you've had injuries at wide receiver. He's still getting it done. There just seems to be, much like another team from Dallas, there just seems to be something off right now. I believe the 49ers will find it. It is a 17-game season for a reason. But if Brock Purdy's getting all this done and Jennings is having a monster night and your defense is at times good enough, you have a brilliant offensive mind, you cannot lose. You cannot lose to the Los Angeles Rams.
Yes, that's fair, but I do think they right it. I think they get healthy. Well worth checking out the video with Mike Silver on the channel, because we do go deep on all of that. We've mentioned the rookie quarterback performances a little bit already in this show. And look, there are 3 guys right now who are starting and looking varying degrees of quality. This is the first ever draft in NFL history where 6 quarterbacks are taken in the top 12. That puts a huge amount of pressure on this class, a huge amount of eyes on this class. And look, we have to take out the guys who aren't starting, right? JJ McCarthy, injured for the season for the Vikings. Sam Darnold comes in, looks like an all-pro, turning them to a 3-0 team. Did you see JJ McCarthy's tweet this week?
I did not, no.
JJ McCarthy just tweeted after they went up, I think, 28-7 on the Houston Texans, Sam Darnold is good at football. And then that emoji. Just exactly what you want to see from your rookie quarterback, right?
That's kind of what I would have said it about, JJ Watt at some point. That's pretty good.
I think absolutely perfect. Michael Penix and the Atlanta Falcons, can't really rank him. And I think Kirk Cousins has done enough through the last week and a half to look like he's the guy they're going to stick with this season. I think Drake May won't start this week against the 49ers. But
it's coming, though.
I think he'll be starting by week 5. I think the fact they brought him into that game against Rodgers and against the Jets showed that.
No offense to Jacoby Brissett, but Jacoby Brissett is not an NFL starter anymore.
So, of the 3 guys who are starting, how are you feeling about them? And let's put them in some kind of order of, if we're redrafting them, who are you taking first?
Or who's going to the Hall of Fame first?
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. 3 games into the season. Who's going to the Hall of Fame?
Number 1 is easy right now. And granted, we're in the moment. So this is you're a rookie. It's going to change weekly. Jaden Daniels didn't look absolutely amazing in week 1. Bo Nix looked absolutely horrible the first 2 weeks. But what I saw on Monday Night Football, what the world saw on Monday Night Football, Jaden Daniels looks like the next great thing in the NFL. It's based off one game. This is what we do. And this has been a year of overreactions thus far. 1 week, 2nd week, 3rd week. But Jaden Daniels was absolutely efficient. He's doing it on the road in Cincy since he had to have that win. And he's throwing balls that only all pros throw. His last touchdown pass was on a cover 0 was absolutely perfectly placed. That you could not have drawn that up better on a video game schematic. And his confidence, his smoothness, and then for me, it's always how do you handle yourself after that? How do you handle yourself during that? I want to see that poise, professionalism, that leadership that the franchise quarterbacks, the greats, the GOATs talk about. Jaden Daniels after the game is thanking his mom and dad for how they raised him. Love that about him. He's also though trolling and taunting Bengals fans,
absolutely. This is what I was
go
going to say.
Home, go home. But I love that about him because in this day and age, in 2024, you need to have supreme confidence, but also be humble. That's kind of how it is for athletes anymore. Jaden Daniels.
So what you're saying is you're going to
that.
like Caleb Williams more if he thanks his parents.
I'm going to like Caleb Williams more if he plays better.
I think you've dug out Caleb Williams for being cocky and overconfident. And then Jaden Daniels, admittedly, he's done it after throwing.
You have to back it up. That's the thing. You have to
pass.
back it up. You can be the most confident, cocky player in the world. I don't care. You have to back it up. I think it goes for Premier League or the NFL or the NBA. I don't care what you do or say. You have to back it up. Caleb Williams hasn't backed it up yet.
I'm with you, Jaden Daniels, number one, which is another prediction that I made pre-season that is not looking very good right now.
What did you say?
But he was sensational. I'm not getting into it. He was sensational against the Bengals last night. 2 touchdowns. That throw that you mentioned, Terry McLaurin, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Whilst taking a hit,
Yeah.
absolute rainbow, stunning. Bo Nix, I thought, looked pretty good this week. Like, again, within the structure of Sean Payton.
I would say he looked really good. Really good.
Obviously, the rushing yardage helped a huge amount. The rushing touchdowns helped a huge amount. It's a guy we were all laughing at in April and May when the Denver Broncos take him at 12 overall. A guy who shouldn't be going until the second round. A guy that every draftnik says doesn't have... He's got the tools and he might be okay, but he's never going to be a top-tier guy. And in week 3, he carried his team to a big victory on the road against the Bucs. And so I've got to have Caleb Williams in third with Bo Nix in second.
I don't think it's a question right now. And I will say, sometimes I am a little wrong. I was on this program last week, questioning Sean Payton a little. Does he still have it? Because it wasn't really working with the Broncos and Bo Nix and Russell Wilson. While it may have not been handpicked, he had stood up for him, and that had not worked. But what I saw this week with Bo Nix and Sean Payton is the hope for the future. And the fact that Sean Payton banked so much on Bo Nix and during training camp was talking so proudly about him and also defending him and saying, hey, give this guy time. I love what Sean Payton said about Bo Nix this week, to where this guy was at Auburn and he had to go to Oregon. He's already transferred and he has already been through the ringer. And Bo Nix talked about when he was at Auburn, he was absolutely miserable. He had to get out of there and go to Oregon. He put up incredible numbers for 5 years. He is the proof of senior consistency and senior leadership, and that you do it for year after year, like you used to do in college football, and then you have the experience going in the NFL. He looks like just an ideal fit, not that he's going to be the greatest quarterback of all time, but that Sean Payton, who knows what he's doing and had Drew Brees, if Sean Payton sees something in you, Sean Payton is usually right. I'm going to trust Sean Payton over the draft experts.
Right, let's get into what we loved in the NFL this week. And I think we've touched on a huge amount of things we loved already. But I want to talk about going back. It's a little bit far back. But going back to Thursday Night Football.
All right.
And seeing the hurting that the New York Jets put on the New England Patriots, beating them in their own building for the first time in 77 years or however long it was. Aaron Rodgers. Okay, I'm going to say vintage Aaron Rodgers. But when I mean vintage, I mean old but good Aaron Rodgers. Because, okay, he wasn't quite 2011 Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't the guy that, at that point, I think we were talking about in the same breath that we now talk about Mahomes, from a tools perspective, as good as they are in the NFL. But the way that he controlled that offense, the way he moved out of the pocket and rolled out and made plays on the run, I just thought was the best I've seen Aaron Rodgers play in probably the last 5 years. Easily the best I've seen him play in a Jets uniform, particularly coming off that Achilles.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
and if we can see that level of performance through the rest of this season, I think the Jets suddenly become a problem.
So, a year ago, the Jets were supposed to be Super Bowl contenders, and we all know what happened with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, week 1, looked a little old. Let's all be honest. But what I saw from Aaron Rodgers, he looked confident again. Not that he ever lost his confidence, but you're 40 years old. You have a major injury. He was very open about when he went down. He thought that might be it, and the irony, the how horrible that would be. You have this Hall of Fame career. You're one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and you play 4 snaps for the New York Jets after carrying out the American flag. I will say Aaron Rodgers did this to a very, very bad team. So I need to see him replicate this against better teams, against real NFL teams. But I completely agree with you. Aaron Rodgers was very, very sharp and impressive and started to look a little like Aaron Rodgers again.
See, I think that Patriots defense is better than that.
Patriots are not good.
I think he's done it against a very good Patriots defense. I think they were the best defense in the NFL in the second half of last season. They might not be hitting those straps yet, but I think it was doubly impressive because it was the Patriots. As much as you're getting nothing on the other side of the ball from Jacoby Brissett in that offense, I get that, but very, very impressive for me. Was there something that you loved this week that you wanted to throw out there?
Yeah, and this one is easy, and he is not being talked about enough. I don't know why Damar Hamlin is not a national story right now. So when he almost died let's just be honest, he almost died on the field, and it was the biggest story in the world. It was an international. It was bigger than sports. Damar Hamlin comes back last year. He actually up for Comeback Player of the Year, and I'm very glad the voters got it right and went with Joe Flacco. But Damar Hamlin didn't play a lot last year, right? He was working his way back from a near-death experience on the field. He's been really good this year, and not just really good. He had an interception in a blowout for the Bills, Damar Hamlin is back, and he had his first interception. He goes on the sideline. He's celebrating. He's engaging with the fans. You can tell how much it means to the fan base in Buffalo, to the Bills Mafia. That's an absolutely beautiful NFL story. He should be one of the top headlines in the NFL right now. He was never supposed to play again. He might never walk again. He might be dead. And Damar Hamlin is catching interceptions in blowouts for the Buffalo Bills. That is absolutely amazing. I love everything about that.
Right, let's talk a little bit about Thursday night football this week, because the Dallas Cowboys facing off with the New York Giants, 1-2 right now, after a bizarre game with the Baltimore Ravens where they were down 21-3 going into the fourth quarter. It should have been an absolute blowout. The Ravens should have handled their business. We get the first successful onside kick of the modern era. We get some weird garbage time stuff from the Cowboys. They somehow make it a 3-point game. And look, this week, for the channel, for talkSPORT End Zone, I caught up with the excellent RJ Ochoa, a brilliant beat writer for the Dallas Cowboys, blogging the boys in SB Nation. Find his work there. And I asked him whether that fourth quarter was putting lipstick on a pig, or whether the Cowboys fan base truly believed that the first $60 million quarterback in NFL history in Dak Prescott still has what it takes to take this team to a Super Bowl.
I tell you, of all the people that have tried, I think he's, got the DNA, the most likely DNA to be able to do it. He has people make so much about his level of leadership and things like that ultimately wind up falling on deaf ears. And you know this well, obviously, when your franchise hasn't done it, hasn't climbed over that specific hill in 3 decades. And so, but I mean, if you're a romantic, it does feel like he's the one, like he is Frodo and has been given the ring. But that being said, I mean, on Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens, Dak Prescott threw into a tight window 35.3% of the time. It was his highest in a game, highest percentage of tight window throws, I should say, since week 4 of 2018, which predates the Amari Cooper trade that Dallas made just a few weeks after that. So Dak has to be better. I don't say any of that to absolve him of blame, but he's getting no help from the cast around him. His offensive play caller and his head coach, Mike McCarthy, is not scheming him advantages that he can capitalize on or work to his benefit. And so he is swimming upstream in a lot of ways, in addition to the fact that, to your point, he's fighting this 30-year shadow and all the expectations and narratives that come with the crown that he happens to wear. It is a very, very difficult process. And this Cowboys season, with a week left to go in September, feels more dead on arrival than any has at this point of the season in recent history.
So, Brian, I mean, he tried to be positive about Dak Prescott, and he did give him a bit of love. But at the same time, this Cowboys team are horrible right now. They've invested all this money in this top-end talent and look completely devoid of anything beyond it. The Mike Zimmer defense is horrible right now. I just think coaching, defense, supporting cast, all of it, we can dig out Dak Prescott as much as we want, but he is on one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. So I kind of feel almost sorry for him, almost.
So I'm going to go truly American right now, Will. I mean, you ever play you know what T-ball is?
Yeah.
All right, so I feel like I'm playing T-ball again, to where you have this device, and and then you put the ball on top of it, and it's always there, and every time you're just going to absolutely
for the English viewers, it's a little bit like baseball. Instead of having the ball thrown to you, it's just sat on a stick and you just hit it.
It's on a tee.
It's cheating, basically.
And so the ball can't move, and you're going to crush it. Even if you're 5 years old, you're going to hit. I mean, maybe not when you're 5, but you're going to hit it. The Dallas Cowboys are the easiest target in the sports world right now, but they should be. And he was completely right. I mean, Dak Prescott is good. I said this last week and the week before, but he's not good enough. Jerry Jones does not know what he's doing. Out of all the coaches who should be fired right now, I have 2 at the top of the list, Doug Peterson and Mike McCarthy. Doug Peterson still could be a Jaguars coach, and you go 8-9, and okay, the cons will live with that. They shouldn't, but they will. The Dallas Cowboys have all the talent in the world. They're getting blown out at home. They got blown out in their last playoff game against the Packers. Jordan Love should not have won that game, and he was absolutely brilliant. They get blown out by Derek Carr and the Saints at home, and then they are blown out. This was garbage time. I put no faith in what Dallas did in the fourth quarter. That was garbage time. Mike Zimmer, I'm glad you brought up Mike Zimmer. Who in the world would have hired Mike Zimmer to fix your defense? And now their defense is even worse. So I don't know what the Cowboys really have other than a lot of overpriced talent. CeeDee Lamb is arguing with Dak Prescott.
Throwing his toys out of the pram all over the field,
And
slamming his arms down, pouting on the sidelines. It was pathetic.
And you have no chemistry, you have poor communication, you have too many expectations, you have the entire world laughing at you once again, but they set themselves up for this. I have no sympathy for them, so no, I do not believe them at all. They have enough talent to win 9 games, 10 games, maybe get to 12. But when you have all these problems this early, it's getting dark really early in Dallas. And this will be the season, I believe, when they have to fire Mike McCarthy.
And look, they're on a short week this week, going on the road to a divisional rival up in New York. It's not too late in the season, so the cold's not quite set in yet.
If the Giants win that game, it's going to get crazy.
I think the Giants are going to win that game. I think what I saw from the Giants against the Browns, and yes, a weird game, and yes, the Browns had a lot of injuries, but they pick up their first...
Giants were solid.
They pick up their first win of the season, and most importantly, Malik Neighbors, the rookie wide receiver of the New York Giants, is a guy who... And we've overreacted to some rookie performances this week already. The way that he played against the Browns... If he can be consistently like that for the rest of the season, you're talking about a guy who they'll start talking about in comparisons to modern-day Odell Beckham. But going back to the likes of Randy Moss, going back to the likes of... That is the quality. Wow. Because the catch point stuff, the way that he was able to get his feet down, the speed, the route running, all of it made him look like an all-pro wide receiver. In his third game in the NFL, with a bad team around him, like we've been saying about Dallas... I think Malik Neighbors against this Mike Zimmer defense might completely take them apart. I really like the Giants to win on Thursday.
If the Cowboys lose that game, they will be screaming in Dallas for Mike McCarthy to be fired. Because you will have the playoff loss at home to the Packers, which never should have happened. A good team that never would have happened to. They don't have inspiration. They can't finish. They're not inspired. They don't look like they have any chemistry. They're not in sync. All of those are coaching problems and ownership problems.
Right, let's move on to our extra point for the week then. I have certainly something I want to get into on the officiating side. But let's start off with, you mentioned this a little bit earlier with the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce, 3 weeks into the season, looking A, incredibly old, B, incredibly slow, C, only 69 yards. He had more catches and more targets in week 3, and I think that was important, and maybe getting him into a rhythm. And maybe they think about him, he's a guy who we don't care if he performs in September through December, as long as, like he did last season, he turns up in January and turns up big. Maybe that's what he does again. But right now, Travis Kelce isn't good at football, which is the first time you've been able to say that for a decade. And I say this as someone who has a huge amount of respect for him. He's clearly a Hall of Famer. And then you layer on top of that all this nonsense. And I'm not talking Taylor Swift, and I really didn't even want to mention her name. But you get him doing this bow and arrow celebration, which does actually connect to Taylor Swift and her song The Archer, so I now have to mention it annoyingly. And the NFL weighing in, wanting to fine him, saying that it's a gesture which could be perceived as being violent. I think it all just ties into that background noise that he's now creating. And I don't know, the NFL, we know, is the no fun league. And when Drake London scores the winning touchdown for the Atlanta Falcons and shoots a gun in the air, I can kind of understand it. But taking aim at a guy for doing a celebration that everyone knows is tied to his girlfriend while he's already down and out, it all feels a bit much to me.
Yeah, I don't personally have much of a problem with that. I mean, it's been the no fun league for 2 decades now. This is what the NFL does. They penalize you for your socks. They fine you for this. They fine you for that. I have a problem with Travis Kelce right now. He is obviously talented enough. He will be in the Hall of Fame. He theoretically could turn it around next week. I just see somebody who you wonder where his true dedication is right now. He's somebody who could still have 1,000 yards. Like you perfectly mentioned, he could find it in time for the Super Bowl, in time for the playoffs. That's what he did last year. But there were all the retirement rumors in the offseason. Travis Kelce, he was all over the globe. Travis Kelce,
he was always going to come back and try the three-peat, though. There's no way that you don't go back and try him.
But that's not the point. Travis Kelce has 69 yards through 3 weeks. He's not very good right now. He's holding back the offense. How much longer can that go on in Kansas City? How much longer when you have the greatest modern quarterback of all time, the greatest quarterback since Tom Brady, you already have all these injury issues, you're missing all these weapons. Travis Kelce has to be better, and he has to prove to the Chiefs, to NFL fans, that football and winning in the Super Bowl is still his primary focus. He's not good enough right now.
And here's a guy who had 10 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He is a guy who is, I think, legitimately in the conversation for the greatest tight end of all time. Definitely the greatest pass-catching tight end of all time. I think if you're going to get into the football minutiae, I don't think he does enough of the rest of everything, which is why I think you have Gronk above him and a lot of the kind of legendary guys as well. But when you are that level of player, the expectations on you are incredibly high. And when you're not matching them, guess what? We're going to talk about you and we're going to say,
how it goes.
Come on, buck your ideas up, pull your socks up and do better, Travis Kelce. I want to talk about the officiating quickly in the NFL because there were at least 3 calls this weekend that were absolutely farcical to me. And yes, one of them is going to involve the Chiefs. And yes, that's going to get me more hate in the comments just like it did last week. Thank you, everyone who commented. Like it, subscribe, do all of that stuff as well. Dak Prescott is in the end zone. He is pulled down. He is maybe a foot off the ground with his knee, and he just does this little shovel pass forward. It somehow flukily ends up in the lineman's arms, and they don't call it intentional grounding. They don't say that this guy has very clearly attempted to throw a pass because he knows he's going to get sacked, he knows it's going to be a safety, and they spend an age trying to figure out what the actual rule is and what the nonsense is, and going, well, because it's a lineman, it technically means this, and that means it should. It took about 15 minutes. It was a complete and utter mess. Whereas the common sense thing was, the guy is half an inch off the ground, let's call it a safety and get on with it. The Cowboys are rubbish anyway. You have the issue in the Lions game where at the end of the half, it's a tight game, it's a one-score game, and at the 2-minute warning, Jared Goff snaps the ball and throws an interception. Pick 6. 6 points Cardinals, huge play. They're going to go in at least level, if not with a lead at the half, and suddenly, big swing. Instead, they say, oh, no, it was the 2-minute warning. We're blowing the play dead. It doesn't count. The replays very clearly showed that there was time on the clock when he snapped it. 2:01 on the clock. That should have been an interception. That should have been a touchdown. The Lions instead go down the field, score a touchdown of their own, and suddenly you have this 14-point swing. It's more lack of common sense officiating. It's another time when if they'd let the play out and then make the decision afterwards, we'd have had the right decision. And then we get the one in Sunday Night Football between the Falcons and the Chiefs, where Kyle Pitts is absolutely smothered in the back of the end zone.
Throw the flag.
Just throw the flag. Just throw the flag. And if you throw the flag and then you look back at it and you decide to be common sense and you decide to pick it up, I'm fine with that. But you don't throw the flag and then you turn around and go, well, defensive pass interference isn't reviewable. So we've seen it. We definitely made a mistake.
And everyone
but
knows,
we're not going to rule it.
And it was Michael Jordan rules. The Chiefs get that flag. Travis Kelce gets that flag. The Falcons didn't get that flag. That was very poor.
110%. And it all comes down to, I often defend the NFL when it comes to officiating. And I actually think when we look at VAR in the Premier League and the fact that people want to say that it's ruined the game here, I think you look at the way that it's controlled in leagues like the NFL, and as a general rule, the setup has been good. They know when to defer to the right people. They know when to take a look at the monitor. They also, by the way, sponsor the monitor and carry it out onto the field, which not only speeds up the process, but makes them money. How is the Premier League not doing that? I have no idea. But in the last few weeks, the officiating has felt completely nonsensical. It's like all common sense has gone out the window for the sake of looking like they're doing the right thing. And it's ruining games for me, and it's ruining outcomes of games when those people should be non-existent. I shouldn't care about them. I shouldn't see a guy in black or white for the whole game unless he's making an incredible run on a Justin Jefferson touchdown where he does a hip swivel and everyone's like, that's going to go viral. I don't want to see them throwing a flag because they're only going to make sensible decisions and therefore it's not going to affect the game negatively. That's my feeling. Anything to add?
I don't think it's been that horrible. I remember previous years where the controversies were much bigger. I feel like the Falcons game, the way that ended in the end zone, that is a game-changing situation. I'm not sure the Falcons deserve to win that game. I don't think it's been that horrible thus far. I have a much bigger problem with the Dallas Cowboys and the Jacksonville Jaguars and some of these teams that should be much better and just are not the refs are not causing the Jaguars to be horrible. The Jaguars are.
Look, we've got some sensational content coming for you this week on the talkSPORT End Zone channel. Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills are playing on Sunday Night Football. What a game that promises to be. We'll be speaking to players for both teams, so make sure you go and like and subscribe to the channel, and you'll see those interviews first. But for the rundown, that's all from us this week. Thank you so much to Brian T. Smith. Excellent as always. And don't forget, if you want more of this, I told you how to do it. Go and subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel, talkSPORT End Zone. We'll see you next week.